Hello and welcome to Mulch, with me, your host Rebecca Anning-Brown. This is a weekly podcast for flower farmers who want to build a confident flower farming practice that reflects the lifestyle that you want now and in the future. Each week I'll share conversation and tips to nurture and grow you and your flower farm. I'll open conversations that flower farmers find difficult to talk about, provide approaches that will help you to make decisions, chuckle at the idiosyncrasies of our work, and always be real and honest about my own work as a flower farmer. My goal is to help you to grow a curious, confident and grounded flower farming practice that flourishes as a business that you love and are proud to shout about. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you like what you hear, please do leave a review and share the podcast with your flower farming friends. It really does help to grow a confident and successful flower farming community.
Hello and welcome back to Mulch, episode 27, and this week we're going to be talking about the middle chapter of your flower farm. But before we do that, how are you? How have the school holidays started for you? They've started up here for me. News from Silver Grey Foliage? Well, as you know, we launched Autumn into Winter into 2025 courses a couple of weeks ago. Thank you to all of you who've booked your places. Just a quick recap today. There is the Rose course for flower farmers on Wednesday the 25th of September. It's a thorough and expert-led talk through rose growing as a flower farmer and not as a gardener. And it's with me and Paula Baxter from Mill Pond Flower Farm. We also have the Ranunculus course. So that's for flower farmers on Wednesday, September the 11th. It's, again, detailed and thorough so that you can understand what makes the ranunculus tick. And then how to use that information, how to use that knowledge to grow an abundant crop of ranunculus. It's an incredibly important early season investment crop that, ranunculus can be quite expensive to invest in, but it's worth every penny when you know how to do it well. Both of those courses are online on Zoom. There are recordings. You will have access to the recordings lifelong, and if you can't make it, you will still get access to the recordings. The Rose course also comes with a crib sheet of varieties to grow indoors and outdoors. Tried and tested, which is always nice to be able to get your hands on. Now, we have also launched 2 longer courses. The first one is called First Steps in Flower Farming. It's for complete newbie flower farmers, though in honesty, if you're a year or so in and you're struggling to see the wood from the trees, this will address all of your setup and running questions. It's 7 modules long. Each module is followed by a question and answer session, which is recorded, and we will cover everything from what to grow and how to plan your space to essential record keeping and business planning. The whole purpose in First Steps of Flower Farming is to make sure that when you set your spade to the ground, when you enter into 2025, you know how to set up and grow well. There's a whole load of trial and error. There's a whole load of learning about your plots that you'll need to do, but the principles in the course will set you on the right path. And then we have Grow Your Flower Farming Business. This is the year-long course for flower farmers to get you out of the middle of your flower farm and into the next chapter. I am incredibly passionate about education. It's important to me because learning new stuff is one of the ways I stay excited about my work. And teaching is another way that I stay excited about my work. And supporting and watching others as they gain confidence and skills and strength is just awesome. So for me, it would never have been enough. It is not enough to just learn how to grow our own flower farm and to make it profitable and to just carry on doing that. That was never my intention. And so we are edging out of the middle of our flower farming career into, well, we're definitely a few pages into chapter 3, I would say, here at Silver Grey Foliage. And it's time to start using some of those skills from my previous careers. So as a doctor, this is something that I did all the time. There's nothing more satisfying than watching a junior doctor arrive in the emergency department, appropriately terrified of everything, and leaving 6 months later knowing that they can handle so much more. And importantly, they know when and how to call for help. So I'm going to come back to talking about grow your flower farming business later. But before I do, I wanted to talk about the middle chapter of your flower farm and share some more of our story. So the first chapter, if you'll follow the analogy, it's one about setting up. It's one about that initial excitement and fun in planning your flower farm. And it is so exciting. It's expensive. It's also when you learn the basics, from seed sowing and propagation. And it's when you painstakingly create those first beds and plant them and learn about the soil that you're working with and the things that like to grow and the things that need an awful lot more coaxing. It's when you first do seedling watch. I still do seedling watch. I love it. But when you come down every morning to wherever your seedlings are sprouting and check to see if there's anything new. A bit like bakers in the bake-off tent watching for soggy bottoms. It's one of my favourite things. But that first chapter is when you test and trial everything that you can possibly think of to sell your flowers. And then you reach the middle chapter. I think the middle chapter is actually the hardest place to notice. And I didn't notice it until I was forced to. Because in the middle of growing your flower farming business, you reach the place where you want it to be. So you reach the place where you're growing and you're selling and you're making a bit of money and you're working so hard. And undeniably, the business of flower farming is hard work. And perhaps you're doing it alongside another job. But the key thing is that you're working so hard and not making enough money to be able to stop doing the other job or to make it feel like all that hard work is really paying off. Or at least you don't think you are. So when I say I was forced to see the capabilities of our business, it's more that I found myself in a position where I was no longer just growing and selling a little bit, and we definitely had the capacity to grow and sell a lot more, and I hadn't realised quite how much we were spending, and I definitely hadn't realised because of that quite how much was coming in and where that money was coming in from. So what I have witnessed is that this middle chapter, chapter 2, I'm going to call it, is where a lot of flower farmers get and then they decide to stop because it's a lot of hard work and the financial reward doesn't really seem worth it. They're perhaps growing plenty and selling a reasonable amount, and they're tired because they're using all possible outlets to sell their flowers and not waste their work. Nobody wants flowers in the field that aren't sold. And slowly the flower farm that was a huge amount of fun and a real dream becomes less joyful. And that, it breaks my heart when I see that happening. And I don't mean that in a sweet, sickly kind of way. I mean it because so much work has gone into getting you to that point, and you're so close when you're there. You're so close. But it doesn't feel tangible. And so for clarity, I didn't ever get to that point where I was less joyful about my business. But I did reach the point where some serious decisions needed to be made about what we do, who we do it for, where and how we sell our flowers, why I wanted to carry on, and how I was going to make it work. And that was also the point when I identified which skills I needed to work on to make Silver Grey Foliage a profitable flower farming business that provided the right income for us. And I think the right income for us is an important phrase, because what we need as a family will be different to what you need and what the flower farmer down the road needs. I talked about the work that Anthony and I did behind the scenes in terms of learning and CPD in episode 26. That's one of last week's episodes. I really wanted to make it easy for you to understand what has gone into us reaching this point. So if you haven't listened to it, it's a really frank and open and honest discussion about the sort of learning and investment that we placed in Silver Grey Foliage, because we knew that that middle chapter was a place of stagnation and that we needed to elevate ourselves out of there and into chapter 3. And that learning is completely what allowed us to lift Silver Grey Foliage out of a position where we were, just about making enough to reinvest in the next year's bulbs and buy a few nice meals, to a place where we can pay a part-time member of staff and continue with chapter 3, so the next steps of our business. I am a firm believer that chapter 3, I need to say it properly, of your flower farming business is different. It's different for everyone. There is no one single model of flower farming. And that training that I did as a doctor is not wasted. It's part of what makes me useful as a mentor, because it trained me to listen really hard and to hear what people were saying to me and to understand what people really wanted so that I could help them to reach that goal. And it's that skill, along with all of the teaching and learning that I will share with you, that really makes a difference for Grow. Because it's that skill that allows me to see through the layers and the honesty that's completely ingrained in me as a doctor that I share wholeheartedly when I work with people. And that's one of the things that really makes a difference. So yes, by joining Grow Your Flower Farming Business, you will enhance your growing skills. You will improve your systems and record keeping. You will work on confidence, marketing, finance, business planning, and more. But my real hope for you is that I will have helped you to shape and hone a business that is so close to how you want it to be that your flower farm will already have started to lift out of that middle chapter by the end of the year and will be ready, so ready, to get to where you want to be. If you're in the middle chapter, you only really have 3 options as far as I can see. Option number 1 is to turn around, go backwards, be grateful for everything that you've done and the people that you've met, and enjoy gardening and growing for fun. Option 2, you can stick. You can stay exactly where you are. You can ask questions in a scattered approach and pick up information as you go that may eventually lead you through. Or you can take option number 3. You can invest the time and the energy into working on not just in your flower farm, into having fun and being creative about how you're going to make your flower farm the business that you want it to be. And you can surround yourself whilst you do that with like-minded people. There's a link to join Grow Your Flower Farming Business in the show notes. Click on it now to book your place. That's enough from me for this week. Chapter 3 for me is going well. I'm tired and I'm happy. I'm in that thing that psychologists call the flow state, which means that I'm learning so much still and doing so much still that I just want to keep going and going and going. But for now, it's time to rest. If you know a flower farmer who's in the middle chapter of their business, then send them a link to this podcast. If you know other flower farmers, and we all do in this stage of their business, then share this podcast in your stories and encourage them to have a look and listen. Thank you for listening. I'll be back next week with more thoughts and insights into flower farming in practice. Rebecca.
Thank you for listening to Mulch. I hope that you found it useful. To find the show notes, head back to our website where you'll find links to all the things that I've been talking about in today's episode. If you're on Instagram, you can find us at Silver Grey Foliage. I would appreciate it so much if you were able to share this episode in your Instagram stories. And if you were able to leave a review, it really will help more people to get on and grow. I'll be back with you next Monday to talk about more flower farming in practice. Rebecca.